Welcome back, everyone. This will be a longer video, so please use the chapters to jump around if you already know something. Today's video is video 1 in a 4-part mini-series on making user interfaces, UI, with GUM in Monogame. Specifically, we're going to make the Hytale UI from the in progress video they released a month back. Now, I did notice some things when I played Hytale just recently when it came out that are different, or that I didn't understand before actually playing the game. So it's not 100% identical to Hytale when it went live on the 13th a few days ago. There's going to be 4 parts of this series. The first is going to be making a hotbar in GUM. So this is the hotbar that we're going to make in GUM that will allow you to move around and click on the different items. And as you can see, as I click on each one of these items, it changes, or if I use the buttons and press the numbers, it changes as well. Next, we'll actually take this UI that we built in GUM and we'll put it here in Monogame like I did in this example. Next, we'll make an inventory. We'll do that in GUM. And then after we do that in GUM, we'll take that and we'll put it in Monogame like this. So here I've got this UI where I can move items around and I can even swap it out with what's on the hotbar. So this is what we'll be doing in videos 3 and 4 of the series. Even randomize just to show you that it's not static or anything. This is all just randomly generated for this video. So follow along with me while we explore the user interface of Hytale using our custom code in GUM and Monogame. We will be using the GUM tool so that we can lay out our elements visually to get a really nice match to the reference image from the video. I prefer using the GUM tool over code only, but you can also use code only if you wish. If you do, I welcome you to make your own video and link it in the comments. Next up, let's create a blank Monogame project. To make things easier in the GUM tool, it's nice to have an existing Monogame project already. This isn't a full tutorial on downloading and installing Visual Studio or configuring Monogame. For that, you can see my other Monogame Basics Part 1 video. For a basic project, assuming you've got things installed correctly, we're going to go create a new project once we've opened Visual Studio 2026. I'm going to select the Monogame cross-platform desktop application. Click Next. Go ahead and save it as something. We'll call this Hytale Hotbar. Create that. Now that it's built this template, let's go ahead and just hit play. Make sure that things are working. All right, I see a blue screen, which means that Monogame was able to compile the template. And so we're good to start working now. One thing we'll want to add is the GUM NuGet package. So go up to Tools, NuGet Package Manager, Manage NuGet Packages for Solution. Click on the Browse and let's search for gum.monogame. All right, we want the first one here, gum.monogame. I'm going to select the project and click Install. Now that it's done, let's go ahead and run it again just to make sure it's still working. Yep, still works. All right, now we're going to jump into the GUM tool. Let's set up our GUM tool project. We're going to create a blank project. So File and New Project. This part's important. We want to make sure that we save the GUM project into the content directory of your newly created Monogame project. So I just created one called Hotbar or Hytale Hotbar. I'm going to go down here, find the content folder. This is where we want to put our GUM project, but there's going to be a lot of files that are created, so let's put them into its own folder. I'm going to call this Hytale GUM project, and then in this folder we will create the actual GUM project file, Hytale GUM project, save that, and now we have our blank GUM project. A few more pieces just to kind of get set up. We're going to add forms components. We won't be using many of these for the video, but they provide a lot of functionality for your out-of-the-box situations where you can just use it. So you might as well include them now, and we're going to be using one or two of them anyways. So go up to Content, Add Forms Content Components. Don't include the demo screen. Same thing with the Monogame project. I'm not going into full details here. I do have a video and I have information out there about how to get Gum set up. So it's Gum Part 1, the overview and install. You can go through that video. You can go through the Gum documents. This isn't a deep dive into how to set up Gum. All right, now that we've got these form controls, these components, and the behaviors and the changes to the standard elements, we're going to configure the project here, the Gum project, so that it will correctly generate code for us automatically into our Monogame project. To do that, we're going to create a temporary screen, Hotbar screen. Click on that. We're going to go to the code generation window at the bottom. And if you notice, there's two options for us for code generation. We've got manual and automatic. If you save things to the appropriate location, as I've described them in the video, when we click auto, it will automatically detect your repository and understand that you're using Monogame and forms. It will do all of this for you. Now, even though we've got it set up, we still need to click generate the first time so that it will start the process of generating this. So we're going to click generate. It's now generated the Hotbar screen. And there will actually be, if we go over to Visual Studio, two files created. So in the screens folder, we've got the Hotbar screen.generated. This is all of the automatic code that Gum creates for you. You will never modify this file because every time you modify something in the Gum tool, this file will be modified and changed. So do not modify this. If you need to change something related to this specific screen, you're going to go to the Hotbar screen instead. This is where you'll put all of your custom code. Last thing we need to do here in Visual Studio is we need to configure Visual Studio so that all of those Gum project files that were created down here in the content folder, all of these files can be copied to the output directory whenever we compile and we build our project. So to do that, you're going to open up the project itself. So if I open this file, and you'll notice that there's some items down here in the bottom. Right now there's nothing, but we're going to make another item appear so that we can force all of these Gum project files to be put to the output. And to do that, you're going to go to the content folder down into your Gum project folder, select your main project file, and we're going to go down here to the properties and select copy to output directory. Change that to either copy of newer or copy always. You'll notice that inside of the project file now, there is a new entry, a new item group. And this entry says to copy this specific file when it's newer. Well, we want to make a little bit of a change because we want this to copy all the files, not just this file. The way that we'll do this is instead of having a direct file name here, we're going to say ***, which is a way to tell it to recursively go down into other subfolders. And then we're going to say *.star so it goes to any file. Now if I were to run this project, we can see it builds just fine, which is great. But let's go down and look at the output directory. So I'm going to right click on one of these files here and just say open in File Explorer. And now I'm going to go up to the parent folder. I'm going to go to the bin folder, the debug, net8, and here is where the output is. And we can see that in the content folder, we've got our project folder, and it contains all of these files, not just one file. And that's how we know that the ****** worked. All right, back in the Gum tool, we're going to make the item slot. And the item slot is essentially the part of the hotbar that contains the item and the other information. As a reference from the video, we can see that on the hotbar here, each one of these is a slot. So this is what we're going to make. We're going to make these individual slots, which can contain a position for the hotbar position number It can contain an image. It can contain a rarity level. So we can see in here that all of these items are common items. That's why they have this kind of whitish border. And this one has durability. And then here we've got quantity. And this thing has a highlight. So we need to encompass all of these different attributes, these different features into a single GUM component that we can then turn those features on and off. To make that item slot in GUM, the first thing we're going to do is make it easier for ourselves later on by making different parts or components. So we're going to make those 6 different pieces, like I said, the background, the item icon, the slot number, the durability bar, the quantity, and the highlight. So to get started, let's create the folder structure. I'm going to right click here and create a folder called Hytale. Under Hytale, I'm going to create another folder called Pieces. The next piece is that we really want to have our own custom sprite. While we could, if we look down here at the 9 slice, we could use images from this, right? We could try to use these images if we wanted to. But these base images that come with GUM don't include pictures of tools and weapons and fruits and vegetables and things like that. So I've created a custom one, and I've used images that I've downloaded from Kenny.nl, from itch.io, from OpenGameArt, and I've even purchased some packs. So I can't really distribute this, but I can show you the images that I used. So here is a list, I'll put this in the description, of different assets that I either purchased or, if it was free, downloaded those free assets. And here's what that combined sprite sheet looks like. I just took bits and pieces from each one of these different asset packs and utilized some to give us some flavor for the video. So now I'm going to right click and say View in Explorer. And so we can go up one folder to the Hytale folder. So this is down in the components in the project. I'm going to copy that PNG file, and I'm just going to put that into this Hytale folder. You can put this image wherever you'd like. I'm just putting it here so it's near the components. It all is kind of combined in the same location. All right, the first component we're going to build is one of the pieces. It's going to be the item icon. And we're going to build each of these separate 6 components first before we try to build the item slot, and then afterwards we'll build the hotbar. All right, we're going to add a component to the pieces called ItemIcon. I'm going to drag in a sprite here to the ItemIcon component. I'm going to set the texture address. So let's see, texture address, scroll down. So the source file here, we're going to select the location, which is there's our project. And it's down in the components, and it is down in the, it was down in the wrong folder. So the project, the content folder, the GUM project, the components, and now the Hytale. And here's that PNG file. So this is the folder I want to go and look in so that I can find the file. So here is the image, but we don't want this entire image to be the item icon. We're going to change this from entire texture to custom. Go to the texture coordinates, and let's just pick one of these things. Let's just pick this one. To make it easier, I'm just going to say snap to grid. I'm going to, there we go. So now we've got a 96 by 96, which is what these images are. Next, let's set the width to 0, and that will be relative to parent. And then the height 0, again, relative to parent. Now, right now it's stretched a little bit, so we're going to go up to the parent, and we're going to set this to absolute value of 96 and 96. Okay, go back down to our sprite instance, and we're going to expose the texture left and the texture top so that we can change the position of this so that we can pick different items in code. So right click and expose variable. We're just going to call this just as it is. We're going to call it, instead of texture left, we're going to call it icon left. And the same thing with the top here, expose variable, we'll call it icon top. By exposing those, it makes it so that we can change these values at the component level up here. See, now it shows icon left and icon top. And so as an example, if I change this to 96, this will change to the next item. Put that back to 0 for now. So this is the first component. That one was pretty easy. It's just a simple standard element sprite under it. This kind of seems weird to do this. Like, why do we have one item under a component? Why didn't we just add this sprite directly to our item slot? But we're doing this kind of as like a component wrapper, so we can work with it in code easier later. And additionally, if we ever change how this item icon looks, if we add more standard elements, we don't have to change our code. It's kind of future-proof at this point. Next, we're going to build the slot number. So again, add component, slot number. Looking here at the source material, we can see that the slot number is basically just kind of a black box, black rectangle, and then it's got a grayish, whitish number on it. Let's set the size of this to 25 by 25 because I previously measured the approximate size. Zoom in a bit over here. We're going to add two standard elements. The first one's going to be a 9 slice, so drag that up to the slot. Drag up a text object to the slot. We want the text to be second, so I'm going to actually move that down. I'm going to name the 9 slice background. And I'm going to name the text instance slot number text. We'll do the same thing. So I'm going to come over here and copy this source file for the Hytale picture. For the background, same thing. Going to make this be the image we want. Going to go into the texture coordinates and let's move this over to the other spot. Here is my, turn the grid off. Here is my background. We will make sure that it's set to 0 and 0 and the relative to parent, so the parent can control how big this texture gets. Going to slot number here, we're going to set all of these values to center, all these different units. Let's change this text to something like a slot number, so like slot number 5. And then Arial and 14 is fine for this. You can change these to whatever you want. The last thing I'll do for the text is I will set the color category state to gray. So it's kind of a grayish color. And so this should be somewhat close. I mean, it's not going to be identical, but this is our representation of what this will look like. Next, let's expose the text variable. So let's expose this, this text variable here so that we can easily change it at the component level instead of digging down into the component. And we'll just call this, let's see, let's just call it text, I guess. Again, if we go up, we can see it says exposes text, but if we go up to the parent component, we can see that text is now showing up here on the parent that we can modify it. Change it to 6 so you can see that. We changed it to 6 and now it's 6. All right, 2 down, 4 to go. Next one we're going to do is the durability indicator. So durability indicator. Going back to our source material again, we can see that it's basically just 2 rectangles, right? We've got one rectangle that's behind it, this black rectangle. We have a second rectangle that's in front. This is kind of a greenish color. So we'll just do that. We'll drag up 2 colored rectangles. First one here, we'll name this one background bar. And the second one, we're going to name this one foreground bar. We're going to set both of the items here to 100% of the width of the parent and 100% of the height of the parent. Same thing with the foreground, 100% and 100%. Now let's change the bar itself so that the width is, let's say, like 76 pixels wide, and the height is only 2 pixels. There's our durability bar. We're going to change a few more things. First of all, the background has to be black. Let's change that to a black color. And then let's change the foreground to a greenish color. The color that I'm going to use is this one. All right, there's my value, but it's kind of hard to see. So let's change the width of this foreground color to like 75% of the way, just so we can kind of see that in our mockups. As we did with the other controls, we're going to want to or components, we're going to want to expose one of the values, and in this case, the width here is what changes. This is what changes how much durability there is on the item. So let's go ahead and right-click it and say expose variable. And we will expose this as durability ratio. And so in code, we can set this to 100, and that basically means 100%, and it will then be the full width. And then we can set it to 1, 2, 20, whatever, and it will change that value as well. All right, third one down. Next one is the rarity. So if we go back to this image, and I zoom out a bit, what you'll notice is that in this full inventory from the preview video that was out, there's kind of this green border one here, and then some of them have no border, no highlight. And when I first made the video in the code, I didn't realize this, but then I played Hytale when it came out on the 13th. And this actually is an indication of the rarity. So this one here that I have highlighted from the video, this one is common, and that's because you can tell that it's got this kind of whitish highlight in the corners, got this little white to it. And then this one here is neither, so it has no rarity, and because it has no rarity, there's no background, there's no highlight. This one here, this green one, is going to be an uncommon, and then there's other colors as well. So to build the item rarity, let's go ahead and add a new component. This is going to be ItemRarityBackground. I will say this one's large, so brace yourselves. First, we're going to build a basic part to the component. So we're going to add a 9 slice. I'll grab a 9 slice from down here. It could also be a sprite if you wish. I'm just using a 9 slice because it's common to do that for anything that has a border. I'm going to name this background. And then I'm going to set the parent equal to 96 by 96. As before, we want to copy that path. So I'm going to copy this path for our PNG file, for our Hytale image sprite sheet. And I'm going to set that for this background. Now for this first one, what we're going to select is we're going to actually select 0, 0. Let's go ahead and snap it again. And we will come all the way out here to 96 by 96. Now we're going to want to be able to easily change the rarity without manually manipulating colors in code. And we also don't want to have 6 different images in our PNG file. So the way that I did it was I've actually got this kind of grayed out image over here that's supposed to represent that same thing that we can then change the color of this element to tint it to the specific rarity color. So to do that, though, we're going to use the states and the categories. So up here in the middle, where it says default, this is the category. So let's create a new category. We're going to call it rarity category. And now we're going to add the 6 states. None, common, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary. So keep adding states. Common, right click, add state. Uncommon, add state, rare, epic, legendary. Again, this isn't a full GUM tutorial about components or states. I do have videos that talk about that, and there's documentation. You can also reach out on Discord. So for none, we do want this to remain this same icon, because this is what it means when you have no rarity, based off the source material images and videos. But now we're going to go through, and we're actually going to set the grayscale image for all the other ones, and then we're going to set a specific tint color. So let's just start with common. Go to common, and what we'll do is we will snap to grid again. We will move this over, and we will select the gray. So for common, it's going to use this image instead, and then for the color, we'll set that to, the first two F's are alpha in this picker. Then we get RGB afterwards. So here's none, and then here's our uncommon, or sorry, common. Let's go to our uncommon. So for uncommon, it is a greenish color. So we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to select this other image, and then down here, we're going to change this color to a, having some trouble there. Okay, so here's the greenish color. So we got our uncommon, or our common and our uncommon. Let's set up the rare now. Change that color. Set up our epic. Okay, and then set up our legendary. Drag that over. Copy the color hex value I had saved off. Get rid of the last ones, put it in. There we go. So now we've got none, common, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary tints. All right, believe it or not, that's actually the last component piece we're going to work on, because 2 of the 6 parts of our item slot are actually just going to use standard elements. So let's build our item slot now. Right click on Hytale and add a component, item slot. For that, we're going to want to set the width and the height to 96, so 96 by 96. And the reason why I'm selecting 96 is that's the image size I used. You are welcome to use other image sizes, 32, whatever. This is just what I used based on the Hytale image source data from the video. All right, let's set up the background first. So we'll pull the ItemRarityBackground into our item slot. Now we have an instance. We're going to want to expose that category so we can modify it in the parent. So if we come down to the states and visibility, we can see the rarity category we created that has all those different categories, states. Let's expose this, and we're just going to expose it as rarity. So rarity is right there, exposed. Next, let's set up the item icon. So I'm going to drag the item icon component down to the item slot, which will create an instance of the item icon. Now, we do need to be able to change this image to the other images, the other tools, but we're going to handle that in code for this instead of handling it with states and categories. Which means that the left and top position of this, we need to make sure that we expose those up to the parent. So let's do the same thing. Right click, expose. We're going to leave this at icon left and expose this one, and we'll leave this at icon top. So if we take a look at the parent item slot, way up at the top, we can see that there's that rarity category that right now doesn't have a spot. By the time that you watch this video, this may be fixed in GUM. And then we go down here and we can see that the icon left and icon top are in the appropriate section called source. Let's set up the item slot. So where's the item slot? Item slot's here, so we'll drag that down. Here's that slot. For this, we want to expose the text. So if we go to the text here, we're going to expose this as Hotbar SlotNumber. Go back up to the item slot, and we should see a text section now. with Hotbar slot number. Again, we're trying to get all of this stuff exposed from these individual elements all the way up through the components and their instances. We want to expose things all the way up to this item slot so that we can easily modify these specific values directly at the parent component level. Let's add the durability bar. So bring that down. We got an instance of that now. Positioning is kind of wonky though. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the X units to center and the X origin to center, so it's centered. But we want it to be at the bottom, so we're going to change the Y units to bottom and the origin to bottom. It's there, but it's sort of at the very edge of this slot, and we want it to be a little bit higher. So all we have to do is change the Y value to something, and I'll just put -5. That should pop it up a little bit. So now it's above the bottom. And the last piece for the durability here is we want to expose the durability ratio up. So here's that durability ratio. We're going to expose that, and we'll expose it as the same thing, durability ratio. The last two pieces are going to be standard elements. We need to have the quantity. So let's pull up a text instance. Let's name this quantity text instance. Similar issue here. We don't want this in the top left. We want it in the bottom right. So let's mess with our units again. We want to put it all the way over to the right, but inside. So we want the origin to also be right. And then we want it to be at the bottom. So we want it to be all the way down at the bottom. Now, just like with the durability bar, we want it to be a little bit higher up. So we're going to do the same thing where we change the Y by -5. And that helps, but it's still kind of at the edge. We want to push it in. So we'll also do -5 on the X value. And then let's change the font. So let's change the font from Arial to something that has some kind of old-fashioned look. Let's go to Times New Roman. And change this to size 18. And let's make it bold. And then instead of saying hello, let's put a number. Let's put 23. Or no, how about 54? Okay, so that looks a lot better. This is starting to look like an item slot. The last piece that we need to add is the highlight. Going back to that source material, we can see that the highlight is just outside of the slot. It's not inside the slot, and it's this kind of yellowish color. Because this is a border icon or image or sprite, we're going to want to add a 9-slice, not a sprite. So I'm going to pull the 9-slice up. Going to call this one highlight indicator. I'm going to go back to one of these other 9 slices so I can copy the place of the file. Jump back over to my highlight. Change this from the default into my Hytale. Great. And now we need to go and select it. And you may have already guessed it, but this yellow is specifically for that. And get rid of the snap to grid so I can get down to the right size. And now this is almost right, but this is inside, and we want it to be outside. So I'm going to do a little bit of playing around to get this to that position. So we're going to set the X units to left, the X units to left, the X origin to left, and we're going to select top and top for this as well. Now this doesn't seem like it changes anything yet, but it makes sure that the top left is basically where this is anchored. And now what we're going to do is we're going to change the X and Y values to -5. So -5, -5, and that puts it just outside slightly. But now we can see the far bottom right is inside. So now we need to push it over by changing the width. So I'll bump it over by 5 plus another 5 to get it outside. And same thing for the height. And now we are surrounding this item slot. All right, so we're almost done with the item slot. The last piece is We have to set up categories and states for this. Again, this is to make it easier for us once we get into Monogame and we start writing some code. So I'm going to create a bunch of states now and categories. So right click, add category. This is going to be has item. We also want to have a new category called has damage, has quantity, is on Hotbar. Now, most of these are going to be used to just change the visibility of these specific elements, these specific instances. But rather than exposing the visibility, because we could just come over here and expose the visibility, right? And then if we expose that at the parent level, we'd be able to modify it directly without creating categories and states. But there's also the chance that you have more than one thing you want to do by setting to a specific state. And that's the case for at least one of these. So for the has item, we actually want to do two different things. Let's first add our true and our false for the states that will exist for each of these. True and false, true, false, true, false. When the has item is false, well, if it doesn't have an item, we don't want to display the icon. We also don't want to display the durability here. Neither do we want to display the quantity. And we also don't want to display the background kind of rarity that might be visible. Now, we don't want to control some of those pieces with multiple different categories. So all we're going to set for false is the icon item, or sorry, the item icon instance. We're going to set its visibility to false when this is false. So that means when it's true, it's visible. When it's false, it's invisible. Additionally, when it's false, though, we want the item slot itself. We want its rarity to be none. That way it doesn't have one of these other things like rare or epic or something. So we want to set that one to none. For has damage, we're going to want to set the durability indicator to false for visibility. So true, false. For has quantity, same thing. We're going to go down to the quantity. We're going to go down to the visibility and uncheck that. So when it has quantity, it'll be that. When it doesn't, it'll be invisible. And then is on hotbar. When it's true, this slot number needs to be visible. When it's false, we want the slot number to not be visible. Okay. So you can see how easily you can add other functionality by adding categories and states. Just be careful again if you have multiple states in different categories that are all attempting to set the same variable to different values at the same time. The last thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go to the highlights, and this one will not be controlled by states. We'll go down to the visible, and we'll expose this one as selected. So if we go up to the item slot, we can see that there should now be a selected, and if selected is there, it will be highlighted, and if selected is not there, it won't be highlighted. We'll leave it unselected for now. All right, that was a lot. I know it was a lot, but now we've got this single component that we can use, and that single component has all of these different features. For the default behavior, I'm going to also disable the highlight because we don't want that in our preview when we're kind of just looking around. Now let's build the actual hotbar using these item slots. So we're going to build another component now. Right-click on Hytale, add component, call it hotbar. Before we add anything, we're going to actually add a control from the standard forms So let's see, stack panel, where is it at? Stack panel. Let's add a stack panel to our hotbar because we have, the 9 different slots, so we need to have a stack panel there. I'm going to name this to inner stack panel. I'm going to set its width and its height equal to 0 parent, 0 relative to parent. Oh, sorry, relative to children is what I want. And the reason why is because we're going to have those 9 instances in here, and I want it to grow or shrink depending upon how many there are automatically. Additionally, I want the stack panel to go left to right. So right now it's top to bottom. I'll change that to left to right instead. And I want a spacing of 7 pixels between each of those images. All right, now we just need to add these item slots into this stack panel. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I could stop here because this is 9, and then I could just rename them all, but that'd be kind of a pain in the butt. What I'm going to do is just add this one more time. So now I've actually got too many, and then I'm just going to delete the first one. So now I've got 1 through 9 to match the hotbar buttons 1 through 9. If I zoom out a little bit over here on the right, we can see that we've got our hotbar setup looking pretty good. There's also this weird box here, and that's because I forgot to modify the hotbar itself. So let's go back to the hotbar, and we will do the same thing we did with the other one. Set it to 0 additional pixels, and it should match the width of the child, and 0 additional pixels match the width of the children. That's basically it. Let's add this component. Let me minimize this one. Let's add this hotbar to our hotbar screen. So I'm going to drag that up. If we take a look over here, let's change the project default to a larger screen size. Okay, so that's looking nice, but most hotbars are at the bottom. So let's change this instance so that the alignment is down at the bottom. We'll use the bottom middle. But we don't want this to be right at the bottom. We want to give a little bit of border. So same thing, we'll change this Y to negative value to push it up a bit. All right, our gum component is complete now. And now we need to go to Visual Studio, and I'm going to give you a quick demo. Again, we're not going to go into details on how to hook up all of the code, but I want to at least get this previewed into Monogame. Back over here in Visual Studio, there's some actual links that you can go to that will describe how to get set up in Monogame with Gum when you're doing a gumtool project file. I'll go very quickly through it. So in game 1, we're going to add some using statements at the top. All right, those 3 using statements there. Then down in your game 1 class, we're going to add another variable. This one will be the Gum UI. This is going to get us instance to the default Gum service. Under initialize, we need to load our project. So Gum, this folder here should be wherever based off the content location. So here's the content folder. Under that is Hytale Gum Project. Under that is the Hytale Gum Project gumx file. So this should point to that location. Next, we want to make sure that our code, that Gum actually will update the user interface. So we will put this in the Monogame update. And the last little bit we need to do is draw the UI. So we'll tell Gum to make sure it draws its user interface. Okay, if you had followed along and not had any mistakes and you've correctly set up your projects as I've defined them, at this point in time you should basically be done. Let's hit play and see what happens. Okay, I did actually miss one thing. Over here in the documentation, I forgot to actually load the screen and then add it to root. So let's go ahead and copy this from the documentation. We'll add that into our code right after the initialize. Now, one thing to warn is that this is using an assumption that we've got at least one screen. In the demo code here on the website, there is, of course, a check for that, but I'm not going to add that for this quick demo. We're going to grab the first screen, and because we have a screen called Hotbar screen and we have no other screens, this will obviously be the Hotbar screen. Let's hit play again, and now, hopefully, we'll see the hotbar on the screen. Yep. Our Monogame project window is too small, though. Let's fix that. I'm going to do this a very easy, naive way. I'm just going to set the preferred back buffer width and height. I know that there's tons of different ways to do this, and some of them are better than others, but this is just a demo for Gum in Monogame, not specifically a Monogame tutorial. There we go. Now we've got our UI in Monogame. Okay, that is the component built and displayed in Monogame. This video turned into a lot longer than I had originally planned, and so that's why when I made this video and recorded it, I intentionally split this up into 4 pieces. There are the 2 component building pieces in Gum. There's the hotbar, and then I'm going to eventually do the inventory. And then there is the 2 monogame pieces where we actually wire it up to handle mouse and keyboard inputs. And those will be 2 separate videos. So I've already got the code written. I've already got the Gum UI built. I just have to write the scripts for the other 3 videos and record them. So I'm planning to release about 1 video a week for the next 3 weeks here after this video. Let me know how that works for you, if you like this split up, or if you'd prefer to wait longer to make even a longer single video. In the next video, specifically, I will show you how to wire all of this up in Monogame so that you can actually change the slots and get the information about it. And you can even randomly change these components, these items rather, to different items with different images, with different durabilities and quantities and rarities. Thanks for watching. Reach out with comments. Join Vic and I on the Discord. Come to the documentation website if you have questions. Contribute to the source code on GitHub. Thanks for watching.